Once upon a time, in the heart of the bustling metropolis known as Skylight, lived a man named Ethan. He was a man in a perpetual hurry, his life an endless race against time itself. In the swirl of rushing pedestrians and honking cars, Ethan's footsteps echoed his restless thoughts. He was always chasing something, his dreams forever a step ahead. One day, in the midst of his daily dash, fate intervened in the form of an old woman. She was hunched over, a basket of flowers cradled in her weathered arms. The flowers were a riot of color against the monotonous gray of the city, and as Ethan collided with her, the basket tumbled and the flowers scattered like fragments of forgotten wishes. "Hey, watch where you're going!" Ethan snapped, his impatience coloring his words. The old woman's eyes, however, held a different story. They were a tapestry of years gone by, filled with sorrows and joys known only to her. She began to gather the fallen petals with frail hands, her movements slow and deliberate. She looked up at Ethan, her gaze holding both sadness and an unspoken plea. Caught between his racing thoughts and the peculiar sight before him, Ethan hesitated. With a sigh and a begrudging sense of obligation, he knelt to help pick up the flowers. The old woman's eyes never left him, her gratitude palpable in the air. "Thank you, young man," her voice was a whisper, but it carried the weight of a lifetime. "May you find the beauty that eludes you." As he continued to gather the flowers, Ethan felt an odd sensation, a tug at his heart that he couldn't ignore. "Is there something you've learned in all your years that you could share with me?" he asked, his voice tinged with curiosity. The old woman paused, her eyes meeting his. "Life is not a race, dear one. It's a collection of moments, each one a precious gift. When you rush through them, you miss their essence, their magic." With the weight of her words settling in his chest, Ethan rushed to catch his train, leaving the old woman behind. But as he sat on the speeding train, something gnawed at him. The memory of her eyes lingered, haunting him in the midst of his hurry. The realization dawned upon him that his haste had blinded him to life's simple wonders. That night, in the solitude of his apartment, Ethan faced the truth he had long ignored. His days were a blur of motion, his every second accounted for yet meaningless. He remembered the old woman's eyes, the fallen flowers, and the seconds he had brushed aside. And so, with the next dawn, Ethan set out to change. He allowed himself to slow down, to linger in the moments that had once passed in a blur. He tasted the rain on his lips, marveled at the dance of city lights, and even strummed chords on his long-neglected guitar. Days turned into weeks, and something extraordinary happened. Ethan found himself making connections with strangers, noticing intricate details in the city's architecture, and even discovering a hidden talent for painting. Each second, once squandered, now held a promise of untapped beauty. One afternoon, as he meandered through a sunlit park, Ethan witnessed a young woman struggling with her phone. It slipped from her grasp, falling perilously close to shattering. In an instant, Ethan reached down and caught it, their eyes locking for a suspended moment. A smile tugged at the corners of her lips, surprise mingling with gratitude. "Thank you," she said, her voice soft like the flutter of a secret. Ethan grinned back, his heart warmed. "No problem. Just remember, it's all about taking life one second at a time." As they walked away, a newfound understanding settled within him. In that single second, a connection had formed. And as he looked up at the sky, painted with hues of gold and pink, Ethan whispered a silent "thank you" to the old woman, the scattered flowers, and the serendipitous encounter that had transformed his world by teaching him to cherish every fleeting second.